Today I'm going to talk about noun clauses introduced with that. Now there are two kinds of that clause in English. One kind is a noun clause. For example, he found that the lessons were too easy for him. And the other kind is a restrictive relative clause, such as this is the book that he recommended. In this video, I'm going to talk about the first kind, that is, noun clauses introduced by that. So, what is a noun clause introduced by that? Very simply, we can take any proposition, that is to say, any statement that is presented as a fact or as a potential fact, and turn it into a noun clause by placing that in front of it. We can do this with reporting verbs like say, tell, explain, and with verbs of cognition and perception like see, think, notice. For example, she was shocked. He told me that she was shocked. He likes bananas. I noticed that he likes bananas. The plague that raged across England in the 14th century played a significant role in bringing the feudal system to an end. I was taught that the plague that raged across England in the 14th century played a significant role in bringing the feudal system to an end. Fred has never been to Germany. Don't forget that Fred has never been to Germany. There is a family of pink garden gnomes living in her garden. She says that there is a family of pink garden gnomes living in her garden. And these are all statements. They're all complete in themselves and they all make a claim to truth. And that doesn't mean to say that they are true. It simply means that, unlike, say, questions or imperatives, they can be discussed in terms of whether they are or are not true. We can argue about it. And in all these cases, the that clause is the object of the verb. That clauses can also act as subject complements. For example, the problem is that none of us have any money. And as adjective complements, such as I am happy that my daughter is coming home for Christmas. And they can be used as noun complements like the idea that humans can live on other planets is just a dream. That clauses as noun complements look rather similar to restrictive relative clauses, such as this is the book that he recommended, but they're not quite the same. That clause noun complements contain a complete statement or proposition. Humans can live on other planets. Restrictive relative clauses introduced by that are incomplete. He recommended by itself is an incomplete statement. And while that can be dropped from restrictive relative clauses, so we can say the book he recommended, we can't omit it when it introduces a noun complement. Note that we can't use that clauses after a preposition, so we'd have to add a noun and use the that clause as a complement to that noun. For example, some people believe in the idea that there are aliens on Mars. He cares about the fact that plastic is bad for the environment. That clauses are also occasionally used as the subject of the verb, so we could say that you haven't met him is surprising. However, such constructions are unusual. Most speakers would use the dummy it pronoun in this case and say it's surprising that you haven't met him. There are a couple of properties of that clauses that we should look at. One is that the word that itself is very often optional. It may sound strange, but we can often omit that from a that clause and still make sense. But there are exceptions. As I've already said, we can't omit that when the clause is used as a noun complement. And most reporting verbs include that. We can omit it with the two most common reporting verbs, say and tell. he said he was coming, he told me he was coming. But with most other reporting verbs, the that is normally included. For example, he explained that he had made a mistake, or they argued that the guidelines were not clear. It's not wrong to omit that, but it's unusual. As a general rule, that is more often dropped in casual contexts, and it's probably good advice for learners of English to overuse it rather than underuse it. If you're confident, well, drop that. But it's never wrong to include it, and it sometimes sounds strange if it's omitted, so if you want to play safe, then use it. Finally, let's look at the effect the time frame may have on that clauses. In the case of the examples I've looked at so far, the proposition or statement in the that clause is not affected by the tense or aspect of the verb in the main clause. But that clauses can be time sensitive. If the proposition is, for example, he's going to Paris, and we embed it in a main clause with a reporting verb in the past tense, we'll quite likely also put the proposition into the past tense. He said he was going to Paris. And this basically comes under the rules for reported speech. If the situation belongs in the past, then we very often use backshift and put the that clause into the past to fit the situation. But this doesn't just apply to reporting verbs. It also applies to verbs of cognition and to verbs of perception. And we can see it in adjective and noun complements as well. I've made a couple of videos on backshifting with reporting verbs that you can check out separately, and I've got several more of these advanced grammar videos in the pipeline, so don't forget to keep an eye out for them.